if you could proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Smith, and I would like to thank as well Rank Member Donald Payne, and I would like to thank Mr. Trainer and the rest of the members and the staffers. Thank you so much for your hard work. Mr. Chair, I will ask my full written statement to be included in the record, please, if that's possible. Thank you. One Free World International is a human rights organization based in Toronto, Canada. We have 28 branches around the world. Most of our branches operate as intelligence branches, which mean that we collect information about the persecution that's happening to the minorities. We dealt with many minorities. We helped many minorities, Christians, Falun Gongs, Uyghurs, Baha'i, Ahmadi, and many more. And as well, we stood against the rising of the anti-Semitism in many countries. After finding fact-finding missions that I took personally, we confronted many governments, and usually in our delegation to meet with many governments, such as the government of Iraq and Pakistan and Afghanistan, we was accompanied by a Canadian member of parliament and a Canadian senators. Today I will be speaking specifically about two countries, which is Egypt and Iraq, and I will be just briefly touching about the situation in Pakistan and Afghanistan. After what's so-called Arab Spring, and I have no idea who called it Arab Spring, today the world is waking up to find that it's not Arab Spring, is a cold, deadly winter on the minorities in the Middle East. If we talk about Egypt, since the starting of the revolution in January 25 until now, there is 12 attacks on the Christian Coptic minorities in Egypt. This 12 attacks is the major attacks. According to our resources on the ground, is more than 36 attacks, but the ones that we are aware of is the major attacks. Now, if I spoke specifically about one specific attacks was in October 9, the massacre of Maspero. Now, if we track a little bit, before October 9, in September 30, there is over 3,000 Muslim extremist mob that they attacked a church in Aswan, and the Mary Girgis Church in Aswan. After these attacks, in October 9, the Christian Egyptian community went in a demonstration, peaceful demonstration, I repeat, peaceful demonstration in Maspero in Cairo. The military responded back, the Egyptian military responding back by firing a live ammunition on the demonstrators, armed cars and the tanks run over the people. Basically, over 26 people was killed, 300 was wounded. Not only that basically the Muslim hospitals in Cairo refused to receive the 300 wounded. Only one hospital accepted to receive them was the Coptic hospital in Cairo. After that, the Egyptian police arrested some of the wounded from this hospital, and until now they are prisoners in the Egyptian prison. All what we're seeing right now, according to our resources, this is just some of the pictures that we basically, from the demonstration, Mr. Chair, after that, in October 16, 5 days, a young man by the name Ayman Labib, 17 years old, was asked to remove, he is a student in the school, he was asked to remove his cross. When he refused, his teacher and the student beat him to death. Just yesterday, in the remembered day of October 9, 40 days of the memory, yesterday, over 30 people was hurt trying again to demonstrate in Maspero. That's happened just yesterday. We talk about Iraq. I visited Iraq 2 months ago. In my visit to Iraq, I was accompanied by one member of the Canadian Parliament, Mr. John Weston, and one member of the Canadian Senate, Don Meredith, as observants in my mission, and they was part of my delegation. I was able to visit with the Vice Prime Minister of Iraq, the Vice President, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Human Rights in Iraq. By the way, in any country, if you found a Minister for Human Rights, that means that they have no human right at all. That just is the rules, more or less. So the difficult part that I found in Iraq is the massacre that facing the minorities, not just the Christians, but the minorities in general. Right now, the Christians in Iraq, half of the Christians in Iraq was forced to leave or was killed. This is a massacre. This is a genocide. This is not just ethnic cleansing. This is a genocide when you are forcing half of the community to be killed or to leave your land. And I visited a church by the name Our Lady of Salvation. It's a Catholic church that was, in October last year, was attacked by 5 terrorists. They entered the church, over 54 people was killed. 4 hours, the Iraqi police did not interfere to save these people's life. 4 hours. I met with some of the victims. Mr. Chair, what I'm holding here is the bullets from the bombs and the shooting that took place in Our Lady of Salvation. Some of them still have blood on from the victims. When the police entered after 4 hours on Our Lady of Salvation, the police did not, I repeat, the Iraqi police did not help the wounds. In the opposite, they start to take the gold and the money from the pockets of the victims. And I have an eyewitness, and I spoke with the priest of Our Lady of Salvation. And not only the Christians that facing persecution, I will mention as well the Sabian and Mandeans and the Yazidis. The Sabians and Mandeans, there was 50 to 60,000 in the country. Now there are 3,500 to 7,000 of them. The solution, and I know that I have 5 minutes, the solution, thank you, Mr. Chair. The solution, and if you read my written statement, there is many solutions that we proposed, but because of the time, I will just focus on one of them, connecting the American aid and the international trade with the improvement of the human rights situation or record in these countries. I don't know until when we'll keep giving them blank checks. I don't know until when we keep giving the American people money to the people that cause all of these crimes. This is not the government money. This is the American people money. Right now, in October 10, the Secretary of the State, Hillary Clinton, she indicated that they will continue supporting the Egyptian military. Now, United States, they gave $1.9 billion to $2 billion to Egypt. 1.3 of them is military aid. And she said, and this was written in the website of the State Department, that they will continue supporting the military. Are the military who killed innocents, who killed the minority. The Iraqi government asking for $2 billion for security sections, and United States is, according to the media, that they are willing to give them this money. The Secretary of the State Department in October 11, the day after the massacre, she had a phone call with Mohammed Amr, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Egypt, and she supported him, or she encouraged an investigation that made by the army. Now, can you explain to me how come the army investigate itself if they are the criminals? And here, the White House Press Secretary Jay Carney, he issued a statement that the president is deeply concerned about the violence in Egypt that led to tragic loss of life among demonstrators and security forces. The American president is concerned. It was a massacre. Concerning is not really did anything to the people on the ground. And at the same time, they said, demonstrate that he feels the tragic loss, he feels sorry for the tragic loss of the life among demonstrators and security forces. You make them equal. When you put the demonstrators and the security forces that was firing on them, you made them equal. You made both of them victims. No, one is the persecuted and one is the persecutors. Do not give them the same moral equality in your press release. Mr. Chair, forgive me for taking very long time from you. In closing, Mr. Chair, the reason that I'm very passionate, I am not just the head of my organization or NGO. I used to be a prisoner. Until now, if I took off my jacket, you would found scars on my body. Until now, I have nightmares in the night from the torture that I saw. But, Mr. Chair, there is only one thing that I know in the middle of all of this. I know that the persecuted people of belief and faith is dying, but they're still smiling. They are in very deep, dark night, but they still have the candle of hope. I know by fact that our enemy, the enemy of democracy and freedom, have very strong army, have very strong weapon, but we have the Lord Almighty. I know for fact that they can always kill the dreamer, but no one can kill the dream. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. El-Shafie, thank you, Reverend,
Thank you, sir.
for that very powerful testimony.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to now yield to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.